The last couple of weeks have been really bad for a lot of people and companies within the automotive industry. Car prices are falling, companies are losing money, others are losing their licenses again, and some even are literally falling apart. And today we're going to be covering all of these topics and more. So let's get started. Now, if you're an avid viewer of this channel, you know that I cover automotive news, car prices, and car sharing. And you may have noticed that over the last week or so, I've talked more than usual about Turo and car sharing. Despite the fact that there has been a lot going on in the automotive industry, I haven't covered any of it. Well, that's because at the beginning of this month, I was actually out of town as I got married to my longtime partner, HP. And as a result, I didn't have access to my computer, my studio, my cameras, and I couldn't make some of the normal content that I would have otherwise really liked to create. And so today, I want to bring you guys up to speed on what has been happening over the last week or so. But one other thing before we get started is a couple of days ago, I surpassed 100,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who supports this channel and watches my videos. It really does mean the world, and to hit 100,000 subscribers is truly a dream come true. And though I am going to be making probably a standalone video in the next couple of weeks, I do want to say a huge thank you to everybody who supports and watches the channel. It really does mean the world. But with all of this out of the way, let's get started. Last week, Rivian announced a recall of nearly 13,000 vehicles. And though 13,000 is a lot no matter how you slice it, whenever you look at large, more mainstream brands like Toyota, GM, or Ford, 13,000 is merely just a drop in the bucket. But for a brand like Rivian that is new and up and coming, 13,000 is nearly all of the cars that they've ever produced, and that is not a good look. According to the NHTSA report, the recall is due to the upper control arm and steering knuckle retention fastener of the car not properly torqued down, which could in turn cause the wheel to literally fall off from the car. Now, fortunately for Rivian and their customers, it's only expected to affect about 1% of these 13,000 cars. And the official dealer and customer notice is expected to be sent out by the end of November. Though non-official notices have already been sent out via text, and as a result, Rivian owners have already begun to get their Rivians fixed. Now, in a worst-case scenario, a recall like this could be extremely damaging. I mean, a wheel falling off from a moving car is a disaster waiting to happen. But the silver lining is that the recall is very easy to fix. It involves just driving to a Rivian service center, having a tech go down and torque what needs to be torqued, and then the owner is good to go. And from what I've seen online and from people that have actually had this recall addressed, it typically takes less than 5 to 10 minutes. But the thing is, recalls are never a good look, despite the fact that they are becoming more and more common with modern day vehicles. And this is especially true with new makes and models. For example, the Ford Bronco is a car that was plagued with recalls at the beginning of 2022. And in the case of Rivian, this is definitely their first, most mainstream recall, but I would be willing to bet that it certainly isn't going to be its last, and I will definitely be interested to see how Rivian handles its recalls over the next few years. But on the flip side of the coin, Rivian did announce that they produced 7,363 vehicles in Q3 and delivered 6,584. This means that production had increased 67% from Q2 to Q3. So though Rivian is definitely dealing with some hurdles with their recall issue, they overall have some good things coming. And I know that I am personally really excited to see what this brand does, not only in 2022 or 2023, but years in the future as well. I personally think that Rivian is one of the best looking cars on the road, and I certainly think it's one of the coolest EVs out there. But Rivian isn't the only company that has faced some recent hurdles. CarMax is another one, but things really don't look good for them. Earlier this month, CarMax released a statement that an uncertain economic environment was starting to take a toll on vehicle demand. This statement then caused a domino effect in the automotive sector as a whole. CarMax reported gross profits of $737 million in Q3, down 9.6% from last year. They also reported retail sales have declined 6.4% and unit sales fell 15%, while wholesale vehicle margin fell 26% from last year. As a result of this data, CarMax shares tumbled 22% to a more than 2-year low, bringing CarMax their biggest single-day loss in over 12 years. Now, CarMax is a major player in the used car vehicle space, and I think that what happens with CarMax and what they're currently experiencing is just one of the many signs that the used car industry is beginning to shift substantially. And this is great news for anybody who's wanting to buy a car. Over the last 2 years, dealerships have been able to sell cars at record high prices with record high profit margins, and as a result, they've been experiencing huge gains on the backs of the average customer. But they are also being smacked in the face with reality because of the fact that this isn't going to continue, and we're starting to see this firsthand. High interest rates, high cost of living, inflation, job loss, these are all factors that are coming into play with the used car market, and it's forcing consumers to make a decision of do they want to buy that used car now, or do they want to maybe repair the car that they currently have, drive it for a few more years, and get a used car later on down the road. And more consumers are choosing that second option, and this is affecting the average dealership's bottom line, CarMax included. I'm extremely interested to see what the outlook will be for competitors of CarMax, but also for these different companies throughout Q4 as well, and how it compares to Q4 of last year, because I'm willing to bet that we will continue to see substantial decreases for the rest of 2022. And that brings me to my next point, which is car prices as a whole. Car prices are falling. Now, this is a topic that I'm going to be discussing in a standalone video later on this week, so we're just going to skate over it today. But the reality is, car prices are seeing a more and more substantial shift than I have seen in years. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have 18 cars that I rent out on car sharing platforms, and the majority of these cars are economical cars that could be purchased for around $5,000. So Toyotas, Hyundais, Fords, Mazdas, things like that. And over the last 2 years, I saw a major shift in these types of cars. And cars that were once being sold for between $3,000 to $5,000 were now being sold for $7,000 to $9,000. In fact, over the last couple of years, buying a car that was around $5,000 has been a task that's nearly impossible. But over the last couple of weeks especially, I've noticed some significant changes, and I've seen more cars priced for around that $5,000 mark than I've seen in years. Now, I've said it before, and I will probably continue saying it on this channel, but we have a ways to go before car prices are at pre-pandemic levels. But do not get it twisted. Car prices are falling, and they're falling at a more significant rate. And if you're somebody who's looking to buy a car, the next few months could be the perfect time in order to do this. And if you're somebody that's looking to buy a cash car, I would definitely start keeping an eye out, because cars being sold on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, they're becoming more affordable than ever, or more affordable than the last 2 years. And last but certainly not least, the topic that I'm most excited to talk about is Carvana. Carvana is the ugly duckling on this YouTube channel. It's a topic that we love to hate, and no matter how many times I say I'm going to stop talking about it, Carvana keeps dragging us back in. And let me just say that things are really getting bad for them. Last week, Carvana's dealer's license was suspended again, this time in the state of Michigan. Now, if you're interested in checking out the full story of what's been going on with Carvana, why the company is sketchy, and some of the different issues that they've come across over the last few years, I've made a series of different videos covering these topics, and I will link these down in the description below. But long story short, Carvana has a notorious reputation of not filing title work paperwork properly and in the correct time frame. And as a result, Carvana has either had their dealer's license threatened to be suspended or suspended in states like Illinois, Florida, North Carolina, and now Michigan. According to the Michigan Department of State, they had found the following violations through investigations: failure to make application for title and registration within 15 days of delivery for 112 customers, committing fraudulent acts in connection with selling or otherwise dealing vehicles. Carvana employees admitted to destroying title applications and all applicable documents pertaining to the sale of 3 vehicles that had been sold to customers, and Carvana then took the vehicles back. Failure to maintain odometer readings, improper issuing of temporary registrations, failure to have records available for inspection during reasonable or established business hours, possession of improper odometer disclosure records on which the odometer disclosure had been signed off on behalf of the purchaser, and violation of the terms of a probation agreement, which happened 127 times. Carvana has since responded to the suspension and has filed a lawsuit against the state of Michigan, and has also requested a temporary restraining order against the suspension, which, as I'm recording this video, has not been granted. But if this does get granted, what this would essentially mean is that Carvana's dealer's license would stay intact, at least for the time being, under a certain set of circumstances. But in a statement, Carvana did call the suspension baseless and stated that the state of Michigan was singling Carvana out over antiquated paperwork, which is actually a nearly identical statement to the one that Carvana issued just a couple of months ago whenever the general counsel of Carvana was charged with a crime by the state of Illinois. But I covered that in a previous video, which you can find here. Now, it'll be really interesting to see how all of this shakes out and how Carvana and the state of Michigan handle this over the next couple of weeks and the next couple of months, but I will definitely be keeping you updated as more news is released. But there you have it, all of the recent events that's been happening in the automotive industry over the last couple of weeks. Like always, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.